It is Locked On Jazz for the 1st of March. The Utah Jazz offense is historically great. What? But I'm telling you, it's historically great. We deep dig inside what I mean by this and what it means for the Utah Jazz next on Locked On Jazz. Pow!
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, lots of those today, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, where you can hit the subscribe button. Also hit the bell to be notified when an episode is coming out or we are going live. And we're free and available on all podcast platforms still as well, so please subscribe there as well. Thanks very much for tuning in. We appreciate it. Welcome to James Nelson, who says this is the first time he's catching the show live, and to our regular crew of Riker, Robert, Macy, Jorgis from Greece, Dallin, Scott, all saying hi. We're missing some of our regulars. Hopefully they'll pop in and nothing's wrong in their world today. It's become fairly routine. Some of the people that join us on the live show, I begin to get nervous. Like if they're not here, like something just went wrong. And I'm inconsistent of when I do the show. So welcome to Houston. Welcome to the woman peering over my shoulder who's if you're listening on a podcast, it's in a picture frame. Nothing scandalous taking place. The Utah Jazz offense is number one in the NBA. And it has been number one in the NBA for long enough that I feel like it's just become kind of commonplace and we're all right with it. And I think we actually should look at what really is going on with us offensively, because there's some incredible things that are taking place. One, that we are number one in the league offensively, and two, that we are how maybe actually historically great and way better than everyone else we are. So there's a bunch of different ways to look at this. So let's start first by looking at our worst offensive games of the year. It gets kind of interesting. So if you take our 10 worst offensive games of the year, they happen 10:30 in Chicago. Well, actually, the first one that happens is 10:22 in Sacramento. But let's walk through the various games in our worst offensive games, and I'll do it in the best order I have here possible. So 10:30 against Chicago is a 96, and it's one of our worst games of the year. I have a fancy-dancy spreadsheet I could actually show you guys. I don't know that it's just going to be so many numbers. I'm not sure there's any value to sharing the screen. But you know what? In the name of getting my face off the screen and having you have a better experience because you don't have to look at my face, I will share my spreadsheet with you. Okay. I don't think you're going to be able to see much of that because I think it's too small. But anyway, here is the game-by-game Jazz breakdown of their offense. So the worst offense game of the year, 60th offensive game for the year, was against the Chicago Bulls, and Mike Conley did not play. The 58th worst offensive game for the Jazz was against the Orlando Magic, and Mike Conley did not play. Okay, then 11-11, we have our 53rd worst offensive game of the year, which is not good, and it was against Indiana, and we just were bad. Okay, it happens. Worth noting, we went 9 of 32 from 3 that game, and we also, for whatever bizarre reason, shot 56% from the free throw line. I'm assuming our bigs went to the line a lot that game. Miami's our 50th. 55th worst offensive game of the year is against the Pelicans. Again, just not a very good night. Okay, it happens. We lost by 1 to the Pels, and probably shouldn't have lost by 1. So there. 54th worst game of the year is against the Washington Wizards, and Mike Conley does not play. So now 3 of our first 5 games in which we were bad offensively, 102, 101, 100.8 in that game, Mike Conley does not play. Okay, Mike Conley's important to us. San Antonio Spurs on 12-27. We have a bad offensive game. Donovan Mitchell doesn't play. Cleveland Cavaliers on 112. We have a bad offensive game. That is the game in which Donovan Mitchell doesn't play, I believe. And also, we have no bigs against the Cleveland Cavaliers in kind of a joke of a game, and we lose by 20. So that's like just a COVID night that doesn't count. We play the Los Angeles Lakers on 117, and we have a bad offensive game. It's worth noting, I know this sounds crazy, but no Hassan Whiteside, and I'll dig into why that matters here a little bit later. We have another bad offensive game on 126 against the Phoenix Suns, in which no Donovan Mitchell or no Rudy Gobert plays. And I missed one in here, which is 12-27 against the San Antonio Spurs, where Donovan doesn't play. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games. Our 10 worst offensive games have 3 no Mike Conleys, 2 no Donovans, 1 no bigs, no players, and it's a minor note, but no one Whiteside. So then I keep digging, and I'm like, well, if we keep going, like, what's our next sequence of not very good offensive games? So then you get to like into our performances, which are like in the 40s, and some of our less good games. So you have 123, we play the Golden State Warriors, and no Donovan Mitchell. And on the 30th of Minnesota, we don't have a very good offensive game. We have no Donovan Mitchell. We have no Rudy Gobert. And on 126, we play Phoenix, and we're not very good. And we have no Donovan Mitchell. And we have no Rudy Gobert. And then you back up and you find Sacramento on opening night, which we just won. We weren't great offensively. We won. We have Charlotte on 12-20, which we weren't great offensively, and we just won. And then we have 11-13 against Miami. So Miami, which was that incredible game in Miami, we lost by 6, was our 50th offensive game of the year, which wasn't great. And then the Lakers just the other day on 2-16 going to break. So all of a sudden, now wait a sec. Here, this gets interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Well, I actually counted one of those games. I counted the Miami game twice. No, one's a Magic 11-7. No, I counted the Miami game twice. So 1, 2, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. We have 16 games all year. 16 games all year where our offensive rating was below 110. Why does that matter? That matters because the league average offensive team in the league, the 15th ranked team in the league, is a 111. The 19th team in the league is a 110. If you look at our game-by-game offensive ratings as a team, what you end up finding here is that we're so good offensively that on almost every single night, we're above the league average. Almost every single night, we're above the league average. So if you look at the Utah Jazz game-by-game offensive ratings, and you find the games where we're below 110, or if you even include the 2 110 games, a loss to Memphis and a win against Oklahoma City, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 games. Let's go to the first 14. And the reason we go to the first 14 games in which the Jazz were below the threshold of league average, of those 14 games, no Mike Conley in 3 of them, no Don or Rudy in 3 of them, no Donovan in another 2 of them. That's 8 now. No bigs against Cleveland. That's 9. When we've been at moderately full strength, I have us having 6 games all year where our offense is below league average. 6. Indiana at Miami. Bad shooting night against the Pelicans of 8-32. Charlotte, we won. Sacramento, we won. And the Lakers on 2-16. 6 games all year in which the Jazz offense is functioning at below 1.1 points per possession. 6. Unless no Donovan, no Mike, no Rudy. Oh, okay. No Donovan, no Rudy. Oh, okay. Take our 2 All-Stars off. We actually can't score. Oh, gosh. Blow this up. Okay? It gets understanding that is our first piece of that. These are the scratch notes that we use to do these things. That TV goes up and down out of the cupboard, by the way. It's kind of cool. I'm not going to get up and show you. Maybe I will tomorrow because today you don't want me to get up. I don't have this remote control. That's what's supposed to sound kind of, whatever. All right. So that's the first part of this. I actually need that paper. I can actually, in a bigger picture, wider, broader picture, dig in a little bit deeper and show 2 other aspects of where the offense is pretty remarkable. We'll do that as we continue on today's show next. One is month by month, and the other is who's on the floor. And then I have one other note on, I'm going to leave that note out. All right. Today's show is brought to you by Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street, also located in Logan and in Linden. The Murdochs are just good people. The other day, one of our guys dropped a note that something like 70% of all cars are selling above MSRP right now. Not the Murdochs. They're not going to do it. Blake simply said to me, I'm not going to church. I'm not going to the grocery store. I'm not going to Jazz games. I'm not going places and seeing people that I grabbed a few extra $1,000 from because I could. It will pay. We've been in this market for 80 plus years. We're going to be here for another 80, and it will pay off in the long run. And that's the whole approach of the Murdochs. We can set you up with a VIP meeting at any of the 3 locations. So just email me first at dlock09@gmail.com. The inventory is tight, but is rolling in. Most of the cars are sold before they get on the lot. So what you want to do is you want to go down, have a meeting, test drive what you want. Look at the incredible Palisade. Maybe it's the Santa Fe, the Tucson, the Kona, or the North American Car of the Year, the Elantra. And then from there, you get the car ordered, and then you have the exciting arrival day. It's like being pregnant with a car, and it arrives. It's far less painful. And this analogy probably should die really fast. And it's far less expensive too, by the way. Okay, never mind. I'm going to stop. Go to Murdoch Hyundai at 4646 South State Street, or in Utah County in Linden, or up in Logan. Today's show is also brought to you by our good friends over at rockauto.com. With ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts your car ever needs. Why endure the pointless, intimidating, awful experience of going into a brick-and-mortar store and having them look at you and being like, I need this, and you're like, oh, and they're like, well, we don't actually have that, but this will work, and I'm sure that, and they kind of, none of that. Save time, money when using Rock Auto. Don't choose to spend 30, 50, 100% more. Go for the old school, easy to navigate Rock Auto website, family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Rock Auto's prices are reliably low for every customer. They have everything you need: brake parts, tail lamps, motor oils, and even new carpet. Go to rockauto.com right now. Please write Locked On in the How'd You Hear About Us section. It's Locked On in the How'd You Hear About Us section. Amazing selection, reliably low prices on all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. All right. Chat room is open and chatting. Mountain Hobbler, who always has good comments, says it seems as though Mike has fallen off a bit from last season. So there's a few things that are incredible about our stretch offensively. And I'll get to them. One of them is not Mike Conley falling off. I do think that Mike Conley was exhausted, completely exhausted, as he hit the break after carrying the team through January. One of the people who did not get COVID. And I'm not sure that he has the freshest legs right now. He is aging, right? So, there's some things on Mike's game logs and things you can look at right now that are clear that, everybody does it. He's 34 years old. He just does not get to the rim anymore. So when his last 2 years in Memphis, he was 20. He only played 12 games in one of these. So he was kind of, depending where you look at it, he was 26% of his shots at the rim when he was 28 years old. He was 20% of his shots at the rim when he was 29. 30 years old is a weird year where he only plays 12 games. He's 19% of his shots in the rim the last year in Memphis. He's 13% of his shots at the rim his first year with us. He's 11% of his shots the next year, and he's down to 7.6% of his shots at the rim. The other thing that's happening is that he's not making those shots at a great rate at 57%, which is about where he was a year ago. So he just does not have quite the explosion, quite the kick that he once did. Our system probably might not let him totally get to the rim the same way. And some other, we don't play 5 out a lot and some things like that. So then you get into just, shooting, and he's shooting 41% from 3, which is the second best number of his career. Last year at 41.2, this year at 40.6. So I don't think he's fallen off. I think he's fallen off in the sense that he was exhausted. And I don't think he gets to the rim the way he once did. Here's the other thing that's just incredible about the fact that in regards to the fact that we're having this good a season. And that is when you look at our catch and shoot numbers, which I've always talked about as being this kind of super important number for the Jazz. And what the Jazz have really done is almost built a team that is now built a little bit off of the bounce three more. But if you look at our 3-point, our off the bounce, our catch and shoot this year, we're right in league average at 35.7. It's not great. Last year, our catch and shoot numbers were number 1 in the league, or number 3 in the league at 41%. So we've gone from shooting 41% on our catch and shoots last year, number 3 in the entire league, to dropping down to 35.7. Now, interestingly, by the way, no one in the league this year is shooting over 40% on catch and shoot, which leads to the argument that the empty buildings of early last year led to artificial shooting numbers. Because 3 years ago, the only team that shot over 40% was us at 41.7. So just to make sure that numbers are actually kind of, the league average was 37% three-point shooting in 1920 season. Then we went to last year where a lot of the season didn't have anybody in the building, and the three-point shooting catch and shoot went up to 38%. And this year, the average catch and shoot is back down a little bit, actually lower, down to 36%. So we're right on league average. So there's been a 2-point swing. So if you look at last year, we're probably 2 points off of what we were last year, not 4. But still, we're not quite the same as we were, which is interesting. Now, let's look month by month for a second, because this gets pretty incredible. So if we look at month by month offensive ratings of NBA teams, and we look at so for the season, we are a 116.2 offensive rating according to NBA.com/stats, which does not take out the blowout time, which I like better, but their filters for what I'm doing here are better to be able to show you this. So that's why I'm using it, because that's the reason. Okay. So if we look at the season, the Utah Jazz are a 116.2 offensive rating, and the Atlanta Hawks are next at 114.0. Well, now let's play with some fun little filters here. And I've already done this, but if we look at November, the Utah Jazz, just in the month of November, are the number 1 offensive team in the NBA at 116.7, and they're just about 2 points, 1.9 better than the number 2 team in the Golden State Warriors, and they're 3.6 points better than the first 2, right? Like, the drop-off is mammoth. Golden State and Atlanta are within 2. Phoenix is within 3.6. And then Brooklyn's within 4.2. We're dramatically better than everybody else in November. Okay? So let's go to December. The Utah Jazz offensive rating in December is a 119.6. Up from a 116.7 to a 119.6. We're 4 points better than anyone else in the NBA in December. Chicago's at 115.6, Charlotte's at 115.6, San Antonio's at 115.5. We're 4 points per 100 possessions better than the rest of the league. We go to January, where our world falls apart. Our guys get COVID, Donovan and Rudy get hurt, everything goes on, and we slip to 14th in the league offensively, right at the average for the month at 111. We go to February. We're not that healthy, frankly. Rudy doesn't come back until February 14th. We play a lot of games with Doke at center, and we're the number one offensive team in the league again at 121. Memphis and Ja Morant and his amazingness is right behind us with Milwaukee. So in the 3 months in which we've been healthy, we're the number one offensive team in the league by a considerable margin. Considerable margin. One of the things, and I don't know how you want to try to figure this out of what our offensive rating really is, because that's not quite the same amount of games in every month, but it starts to get us, by the way, toward an offensive rating upwards of an average offensive rating of upwards of about 118, 119. Because you take out the middle games of 111, and if we're doing that, which sure, okay, now if you go take take every team in the league and eliminate all their bad games, I'm actually taking out a whole stretch where we just didn't have our players. What you actually end up with is one of the great offensive teams of all time. If you start to run the offensive efficiency by the best teams ever in the history of the game, this team now, and on those numbers, this team gets close. The greatest offensive team, offensive rating-wise, in the history of the game was last year's Brooklyn Nets. Number 2 was last year's Portland Trailblazers. Number 3 was last year's LA Clippers. And number 4 all-time is last year's Utah Jazz, tied with the Clippers. This year's Jazz team is the 9th best offensive rating of all time, 1.5 points below the Brooklyn Nets of last year. Offense is obviously getting better. We figured out 3 was worth more than 2. And except for the fact that this year's team has this entire month in which they were horrendous. And so if you start to take our 116.7 and our December 119.6 and average those out, you're at 118.2. Then you add our February 121.2 and just move it up a little bit, you're ahead of Brooklyn's 118.3. So when we've been relatively right, that includes Doke, Azubuike, some of those things, then we're actually the best offensive team. What's interesting about it is it really actually stems back to getting rid of an idea that we all had and we thought was very important in the offseason, is that we all thought we had to learn how to play small, and the opposite has turned out to be true, and I'll dig into that as we continue. Today's show is brought to you by our good friends over at betonline.net. If you're going to get into the action, you're going to want to head over to betonline.net and see all the things that they have for you. They have, with football over, hoops is running crazy, both pro and college. They have the latest odds, totals, player props to where the next fired coach is going to land. BetOnline.net is the number one spot for all your betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. Not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, UFC odds, right to the Olympic coverage information. Head to the website today and get your mobile device to learn more about trends. BetOnline, where the game begins. I had someone say to me that they thought that the Jazz were actually the best betting prospect out there. Don't know. Locked On Jazz, thanks very much for making us your first listen of the day. Much appreciative. By the way, NBA futures, I always like to check. Warriors are the championship at plus 450. Suns at plus 450. Wow, Chris Paul injury is serious. Brooklyn at plus 650. Milwaukee at plus 700. Philly at plus 700. Miami at plus 1,000. Boston and at plus 1,400. The Jazz are plus 1,600. Never know. It's wide open. It's just wide open. That's what it is. No one's the favorite. It's wide open. Okay. Here's the last part of the Jazz offense is great. If we look at our lineups and start playing around with our lineups. So first off, according to Cleaning the Glass, we're going to change numbers here. Cleaning the Glass has our offensive rating at a 117.7, best in the NBA. 91st percentile. Now let's play. So if we put Rudy Gobert on the floor, just Rudy Gobert, our offensive rating is a 117.5. Okay, so Rudy Gobert, our offensive rating with Rudy Gobert is a 117.5. Our offensive rating overall is a 117.7. Our offense, by the way, with Rudy Gobert on the floor, we are a plus 10.6. Our offense is in the 90th percentile. Our defense is in the 85th. Let's put Hassan Whiteside on the floor. With Hassan Whiteside on the floor, our offensive rating is a 123.5. We are plus 11.9. Our defense is not nearly as good. It's in the 49th percentile. But our offensive rating with Hassan Whiteside on the floor this year is a 123.5. Like the best offense, like that'd be the best offense ever. Now, plenty of guys have a better than 123 offensive rating, I'm assuming, around the league, who when they're on the floor. Let's put Udoka Azubuike on the floor in non-blowout minutes. This is the great thing about this site. And our offensive rating is a 111.0. We're actually still plus 7.9. But it's worth kind of just like, oh, we weren't terrible. We were league average with him as a center. So now let's take Hassan Whiteside, Rudy Gobert, and Udoka Azubuike off the floor for a minute. And this is where we decided for a while we wanted to play small and see what would happen. And what happened was that our offense became a 105.2 in the 14th percentile of the league. And we became one of the worst offensive teams in the league. In the 634 possessions in which we have tried to play Rudy Gay or Eric Paschall at center, we actually turned out to find out that we actually couldn't score. Not only could we not defend, we couldn't score. And that ends up with, so we eliminate, so now let's go play with one more filter here and see what we get. And that is that we decide we only want to look at lineups that have Hassan Whiteside or Rudy Gobert on the floor as your center. And when you do that, and you've now eliminated Azubuike time as well as Eric Paschall, Rudy Gay center time, the Utah Jazz offensive rating becomes a 119.8 on Cleaning the Glass, which they have in the 96th percentile, and we are plus 11.2. Okay. Now, you want to like play around with some more and like say Donovan Mitchell has to be on the floor and Mike Conley has to be on the floor. Like then you're all of a sudden jetting our numbers up even more because Hassan Whiteside played a bunch of games with guys that didn't matter. We put Donovan on the floor, our offensive rating goes to a 123. You suddenly start to eliminate Elijah Hughes and Denzel Valentine and guys that are not going to be Mia Oni and Zaylen Chatham and Norvel Pell who probably was never on the floor, and these guys that, we aren't going to ever see again, or frankly, the closest live body available. And our offensive rating runs up from where we were talking about to 120.2. So not a huge amount, but it goes up, and our defense goes to 107, and we go to plus 12.4. Okay. Our offense is great. I saw something in the chat room that somebody was criticizing me because I was obviously going to say good things about the Jazz. Everything I just gave you is a fact. Like, there was no opinion in anything I just said about our season. I don't disagree that, I'm generally going to try to say nice things about the team that I cover and that I'm around all the time and that I care about and that I want to see win. I think I've been pretty honest when we've been terrible. I also told you in January it didn't matter. Everyone was jumping off the building in January because we sucked with Zaylen Chatham on the floor, and I was trying to tell you it didn't matter. So my point on today, you can tell me I'm just being a homer, fine, except for the fact that, everything I just gave you was an accessible data point if someone does their freaking work. Now, I happen to know these data points because I'm with the team every day. Honestly, this show is a great example of the value of being on the road. Start talking to people, how they feel about the team, what's going on. This is a lot of what the discussion is around this group. Hey, when we play a 5, we're pretty good. When we have our team, we're pretty good. Most of our bad nights, if you go look at them, are been without a guy. So, longer debate about Paul's last comment, which it doesn't matter until game 83. I've never been that guy. It'd be really nice if we could get out of the first round. It'd be really nice if we get out of the second round, get to the Western Conference Finals. It'd be really great if we got to the NBA Finals. It'd be really crazy if we won it. I'm a big believer that this is some awesome entertainment and a really good community and really fun to be a part of from October through whenever. Let's just see if it can go really long this year so we can be a part of it for really long. But I agree. Let's go see if we can. It's about winning. No question about it. I do believe it's about entertainment in the journey. So let's make sure that we have a nice time with that. It is Locked On Jazz today. Hope you have a great time. Locked On Now is available for you as your second listen, either in podcast or at Locked On NBA on YouTube. It's a fun run through last night's action. It's hosted today by Kimberly Joe Becker. Hope you enjoy it. It's all Locked On Podcast Network.